Hello, fellow diecast collectors and customizers. As promised in my weekly haul video, I wanted to take a quick look at these awesome shelves that you can get at Targets. These are very cool. They're super cheap, and they're, as far as I know, they're probably going to be available for limited time. So if you're interested, definitely get out there and pick them up. I first learned of these shelves from Level M Diecast, and he learned of them from somebody on Instagram, but I did not discover these myself, so I wanted to give him credit for where I found these, or where I first learned of them. But as you can see, I have a couple shelves set up with some cars, but this is what they look like when you get them. There's two different versions of them. One is white, which is wider and shorter, and then one is natural, which is taller and narrower with a wider shelf-to-shelf spacing. And when I first picked these up, I expected this white one with the little bit narrower shelf-to-shelf spacing to be the preferred version for holding die-cast cars. But as I've been experimenting with these and working with them, I actually think that I vastly prefer this other form, and I'll explain why that is in a minute. But first, let's talk a little bit more about these. So this version, this natural version, which is square, it's 12 by 12 and 3 inches deep. And then on the back, it has picture hangers so that you can mount it on the wall. And then obviously, if you were going to mount this and use it for die cast, you would need to make sure that you put something down at the bottom to compensate for this distance so that the shelves are level. Otherwise, your cars are just going to roll off, and that would not be good. But these have adjustable shelves, so you can take these shelves out and move them around. And then on this one, the dimensions are, hold on, I gotta put this down and measure. I don't have this off the top of my head. So about 13 and a half. I wish I could show the actual tape measure here. 13 and a half by it's roughly 9 3/8. And both of these are 3 inches deep. And then the shelf distance is 2 inches on this one and roughly 1 3/8 on this one. So these are both very cool. They're super cheap. As you can see, they're only $5. And they're available in Targets. And if you go and look for them, they are in what basically is like their dollar section, which is at the front of the store typically, next to the cash registers. Also, it's possible that these may only be available in super Targets. I have not seen them in any of the smaller Target locations. I've only seen them in super Targets so far. I could be wrong about that, but I had to go to a super Target to get these. And like I said, these probably are not going to be around very long because they are in the dollar section. They are not a normally stocked thing. The stuff that goes into that section comes and goes very quickly. So I have no idea how long these are going to be around. But let's look at them a little bit more in a little bit more detail in their usage for storing die cast. And they're really cool. So we'll look at the smaller, the wider version first. So as you can see, you have a few options for how you can put cars on them. You can angle them as we have them here. And depending on the angle and the size of the cars, you can get 6 or 7 cars per shelf. Or if you like to park cars this way, which I personally do not, but I see a lot of people do this. If you do this, you can get 10 cars across on one of these shelves. But for me, I definitely prefer the angled approach. And so 7 cars for the normal size models, and then maybe something a little bit bigger like this, you would only be able to get 6 across. But overall it's pretty cool. The shelves are not super strong. You definitely do not want to put anything heavy on these. I suspect over time, especially in a very humid environment, these may bend. And in the store, if you go and look, you may find them with bent shelves already. So you have to kind of pick and choose from them. And like this one has a small crack up here. I mean, but they're $5. I mean, I think they're pretty awesome for what they are. And then this one, the thing that's cool about this one, and the reason that I think ultimately that this is the better version, is without having to move the shelves at all, you can put larger castings into it easily. So like here we have, a pair of 64 in its acrylic case, just slides right in there. We have the recent Ford diorama team transport set, where you can put both the truck and the cars together. You can't fit the car up here without moving the shelf, but this is a cool layout. So this is really cool for the whole team transport thing. So this is one of the largest team transports that's been put out so far, and it fits in here no problem without having to move the shelves. And these are deep enough that you can put the truck at the back and then stick the car in front of it. So as a display solution for team transports, it's pretty awesome. Because otherwise, like a lot of these things where they come with the truck, like the Secura Sprinters and what have you, I end up separating the truck from the car and basically throwing the truck into a bin, and I don't even display them anywhere. It would be very nice, and actually I will set these up with putting them back together with their car and being able to put it in front of it, just like this is. Also great for larger castings like this green light, from this one of the dually driver green lights. And you can fit this in here. If you put it at an angle, you can probably fit 3, maybe 4 dually driver vehicles across on one of these shelves. This probably will fit over here as well. Let's try that. Put that back on there. Yeah, it does fit in here. Yeah, so it will fit in there. But as you can see, I don't think this gap is quite wide enough to really be effective as a display. It cuts off too much here. And I feel this way about the cars overall. I like this extra space. Even when you have the cars, it's like you get a nice cleaner view of the vehicles on the shelf in this form factor. So even though I expected this version to be the best because you can fit more on a shelf, I actually prefer this one overall. And the other thing that you can do is, if you have cars that come in a box like a Mini GT, you can, it's a little space inefficient, but you can actually put the box on the back and then put the car right in front of it. It looks like you could maybe get probably only 2 per shelf, so it's not gonna be super dense. Actually, let's try that. Let's get this out of here. Let's see, how many of these boxes can we fit on here? Yeah, it's only gonna be 2, so that's definitely not gonna fit in there. So not space efficient, but if you only have a handful of Mini GTs and you want to give them the best, display, or a reasonable display with the box, this is a perfectly viable thing to do. But for team transports and other larger vehicles like this, this is actually a very cool approach. The other thing that I think is pretty cool is that if you do customization or any other hobbies, you can move the shelves around and have a pretty convenient way of being able to store your paints. So these are Createx paints, which are somewhat large bottles, but by taking out one of the shelves, I now have enough space to store these bottles, and they fit 2 deep. which is actually a pretty reasonable way to store the paints. And then so this has 3 empty slots between them. So with only 2 empty slots, then you can fit, you know, your typical hobby paints like Vallejo and Turbo Dork and Scale 75. These fit in here no problem. And so these testers paints, these will actually fit in here without having to rejigger the shells. But if you have any other hobby paints, you would have to remove the shells. So anyway, it seems like a pretty good solution for this as well, which for me is definitely a good thing, because I have all of my paints and everything have been stored away. So I just pulled a few out to see how they worked in this, and opens the door for maybe getting back into doing some customs again. But yeah, so overall, I just wanted to show these off with a little bit more detail, and you know, say if you're interested in them, you better go get them, because I don't think they're going to be around for very long. So anyway, again, thank you for watching, and you know, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and have a good evening.